This is the Volleyball Video Dads Podcast with four guys who don't have all the answers, but do have a lot of opinions.
The four of us have found each other. All the BB you can get.
And there it is. It didn't take long.
For the video dad, it's like, hey, that's my spot.
Yeah.
I think I need you to move that net.
Somebody want to bail me out here?
It's fun to watch you work. Matt took me in like a stray dog.
And now that stray dog is turned into a beautiful steed. Welcome to another video pod. Travell. didn't think about that one before.
You like it?
Yeah, you look good.
It looks good.
You look like a DJ.
Welcome everybody to
Get
another.
the techno music going, man.
Yeah, drop some beats for us. We can have some fun tonight.
Yes, sir.
We are four dads with a lot of opinions tonight, and we're going to be talking about some cool stuff tonight. So I'm really excited to get into this episode. But before we do that, how's everybody doing?
Good, man. Good to be
Doing
back.
great.
Yeah.
Club
good.
season is almost here.
Yes, it is. I
Good
am
to be
super
back.
excited about club season this year.
High school season is over.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We had a. I was to say we had
Not,
one,
not,
but
right,
I got-
yeah.
not you. You guys are
Not,
still.
I mean, but if you're talking like overall, there's still local teams that are still playing. Obviously.
Yeah, you guys are
But
still in
no,
sectionals,
our high
right?
school, they're done. Well, the one that we will eventually go to, they're done. But there's still plenty of other high schools that are
So you
local
guys
that
haven't
are in
had
it.
state championships in Texas, correct?
No, history-wise, don't get me to line. I couldn't tell you history. I can tell you about a couple of teams, but again, like I said, I'm not from.
No, but I mean,
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
going on right now? Is it?
Yeah, not the.
It's still
Well, they
going.
haven't made it to state yet, so there's still regionals going on.
Got it. Yeah.
So, but as far as like our personal high school, the one that we would attend,
Mhm.
yeah, they lost to another local team yesterday
Got
in
it.
the regional quarterfinal. Correct me, Jim. Right?
You got me, man.
We'll
I'm
call it
not
regional
following our school's
quarterfinals.
team.
That's
yeah.
right.
We'll call it regional
Sectionals, and then there's
quarterfinals.
regionals, and then there.
Regional quarterfinals, I think, was played, and so there should be one or two more games before they go to state. So
Awesome.
going good.
Now for
Good.
Texas, how many get to go to state? Do you guys know? Just out of curiosity,
I
I haven't
haven't
got a
gotten.
clue.
because in
Well, I haven't
Wisconsin,
made it to high school
got
ball
number
yet,
3.
so
Yeah,
Wisconsin, there's 8. So out of 252 teams, I think that's Division 1 through
I
4.
think one per region. Wouldn't that make sense? I think
I
that's how
wouldn't
it
even
goes. I
pretend
don't
to
know.
guess. Yeah.
I gotta do some research on that. I'll do some research.
Imagine we
on
have
that.
somebody that knows this.
I have some opinions.
Yeah, we got
I got a lot of opinions. I think it's great. I think it's great. We had so I had the privilege to be able to go with the local team that we have here, who won state last year, and went with a 37-1 record into state this year. Went to the finals, and it was a 5-set match. It was the best volleyball I have ever seen. Ever seen. It was awesome.
Wow.
And you got
And-
some years too, man.
What's that?
You mean
Yeah.
you mean in person? Because that Nebraska-Wisconsin national championship
Yeah,
match
it
was
Yes.
This was pretty amazing. I'm not gonna lie. They were down. They lost the first 2 sets, and they came back and won the second 2 sets, and then they traded points for the last. It was awesome. Place was
Wow.
loud.
Good.
It was good stuff. It was good. I mean, they lost. They lost in the end, but by a point or 2 points. But
no shame
still,
in that.
Yeah,
It's
not
so
at all, man.
Great outing, great show, and I got a lot of good footage too. So
Hey
Good.
guys, I'm curious. What's with the hats?
I didn't. Why are you wearing a hat?
I feel
Well, I
just-
thought all of you were spying on me when I got ready for the show. Now I'm
Interesting.
curious.
it's weird.
We're all
It's just
videoing.
in the
Are you all videoing me in my house? I'm.
You look a lot different when you're sleeping.
Yeah,
No, that's
I'm
scary.
still trying to figure out why you wear the hat when you're
I
sleeping. Though.
appreciate the idea I got from you, though.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. It's look all right.
Huh?
So, why are we wearing the hats, guys? What
Yeah,
is,
So I think we have a very special guest,
do?
the lady in the red hat, Miss Volleyball recruiter herself,
Yes.
Kara Hill.
I'm going to bring her on right now. Here she is.
Hey, Kara.
Hey.
There we go.
You
So
guys are looking pretty good.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you.
I don't know. You're making that hat look a lot better than we do.
Yes. Yeah,
I'm
I look
curious-
terrible.
Did you get it off Amazon?
What gave it away?
I have that because there's only so many places that you can buy a red hat, so you have to look.
Yep. We found
I
Yeah,
actually I have that hat.
Dude, nice.
Yep.
They actually
Now-
have a variety of them.
Now we
like
do too.
different bands.
I have some that have leopard underneath, and
Oh, so you
Yeah,
can
these
like
are black.
accessorize this thing.
you could definitely do that.
You got some with charms on them.
No, but
Balls.
it's hard finding. It's really hard, like finding them. If I walk into a department store though, and they have a red hat, I buy
Just
it.
buy it.
Like,
So, how many
a
do
good
you
move.
own?
about 30.
Oh my.
Wow.
Ooh.
Nice.
Wow.
So
That's like Dan's shoe collection.
Yeah.
Come on now. All about branding.
Well, I do want to say
Off
mine is
camera.
collectors. Mine is like a collector's edition. So I mean, I'd sell it to you, but it might cost a little bit.
I'll
Does
keep
it
that.
come with the beats?
All jokes, all jokes.
Yeah.
So Kara, how did you start with the red hat?
It's a really good question. Several years ago, I was it was my birthday. My mom took me shopping for my birthday and bought me a white fedora that I wore actually at a recruiting event that I was hosting at Mizuno Long Beach here in Southern California. So it was Memorial Day weekend. I was hosting a recruiting showcase at Mizuno Long Beach, and I wore a white fedora to actually run the event. And I had a lot of compliments, which was nice. The next day, there was a qualifier, and I went to the event, and I had, I'm not kidding, like 25 or more people ask me where the hat was. So I knew instantly at that moment that there was something there. I don't coach. I've never coached. I don't put myself out there as a coach. I don't want to look like a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I never did the polo with the logo thing. That just wasn't really my style. And the hat really fit. So initially when I got started, I wore a lot of different hats, and then the red hat kind of stuck. I wore it once, and then that was kind of that. Everyone's like, I could see your red hat like everywhere in the convention center. And so it became the thing. So, and then coaches knew who I was, and it just made it easier. So yeah, now I look like I'm going to a funeral about every day of my life. My wardrobe is black with a red hat when I'm going to a volleyball event. So
Nice. That's awesome. So
It's-
you said you
it
have
is
30.
very on
Do you-
brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said that you have 30. Do you buy them because you just like the different styles, or do you just wear them so often that they, lose their shape or whatever?
I've had some that have lost shape, and so I'll toss those out. Some are more expensive than others. The ones that you all are wearing, as you know, are like $10, $15 or something, like super disposable. So
Yes.
those aren't really a big deal, but I have some that are a lot more than that I typically bring in a hat box, and half the hat box in my suitcase.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
So
It depends how long I'm on the road for.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we had a lot of buzz when we started pushing this out on social media, but there was also a lot of people that didn't know who Kara Hill is and what the significance of the red hat is. Could you give our audience a little bit of a rundown on who you are, what you do for the volleyball industry?
Yeah, so my name is Kara Hill. Most people know me as V-Ball Recruiter over Kara Hill at this point, but I have developed a brand as V-Ball Recruiter. I originally started owning a recruiting service. I started a college recruiting service called My Recruiting Solutions based here in Southern California. And that was about 12 and a half years ago that I actually got started. And over the course of the last 12 and a half years, I have helped a lot of athletes navigate through this college volleyball recruiting process. I've expanded my team. And so there are a team of us that actually create content for athletes. And we run a media site called Volleyball Recruiter, where this week you can see we're featuring players to watch in this 2023 club season. So that's really hot on my Insta account right now, where we're featuring athletes from the 2023 all the way down to the 2028 recruiting classes that we're following and tracking throughout the club season. And so my team and I go into the gym, and depending on the department, if you will, I have Coach Sam that's been with me for the last 5 years. She's our lead recruiting coordinator and helps the athletes through the college recruiting process. She provides step-by-step guidance, counseling, and actually leverages her relationships with college coaches to advocate for players. And so when we get in the gym, we're talking to coaches and we want to know what their recruiting needs are, and really where athletes might be on their radar. You know, are they in the A group? Are they in the B group? Does it make sense to make the investment to go to a certain camp or to get on campus? So those are kind of the questions that she's really focused on to be able to better help families understand where they are and really navigate the journey. So we help them prepare for phone calls. We help them with their emails. We also help them with their social media content and helping them understand how to run a campaign on social at this point as well. So they're not just focusing on running an email marketing campaign. They're now focused on using social media in a very intentional way that creates exposure 365 days a year. And that's more my end of things, where now at this point I have multiple people that are involved on that angle. And so we work with the athletes, meeting with them pretty constantly to help them with creating content and really putting them in the driver's seat of their recruiting process. Instead of just relying on an email to get into a college coach's inbox and waiting to see if they, open or click on the video, there's other ways that you can be way more impactful. And so we teach those systems or processes, if you will, to help them understand, how to build a brand if they're wanting to go down the name, image, and likeness route, or even just trying to get recruited and getting way more exposure, based on wherever their team's going, playtime issues, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of things you can do there.
I'm really glad you mentioned that. And that was one of the questions I had for you was your service and the branding. Is it primarily intended for recruiting, or was it also for, kind of social media development, other career development, leveraging sport to build that second career?
Yeah, so it depends on the athlete. There are some that we're working with that are very interested in wanting to really build a path to monetize prior to getting to whatever institution they're going to get recruited at. So, for athletes that are going to go play at the highest level, that would be at a Texas or a Nebraska or a Wisconsin. For athletes that we work with, that are going down that path, for example, we're focused on putting a game plan in place so that they have a way to monetize by the time that they get there. They need, I don't really believe in a business plan, but having something, whatever that's going to be. So if they're passionate about, nutrition, for example, I have somebody right now that's very passionate about nutrition and is thinking about being a nutritionist and doing the athletic training route and wanting to be a trainer, working on building her brand now, showing that she's committed to living a certain lifestyle, meal planning, things of that nature. So once she gets to where she ends up going, she has a place to point the fan base, because you have 4 to 5 years. Once you get into the institution and you're wearing that jersey, you've got 4 to 5 years to really capitalize on that opportunity. And after that, you kind of become irrelevant unless you go off and you have a pro career or you're doing something. And so my message to these young women is to build a culture or build a community around your talents and be able to leverage that community for whatever is next. And that's the focus of our plan for athletes that are interested in that. Not everybody is interested in that. You know, some are just wanting to get recruited, but the ones that are serious about, you know, wanting to have that next thing, we are very much exploring different things that they're passionate about that they would be able to monetize on.
That's fantastic. So do you then continue working with them through college?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So helping them put together a deck, right? So there's a lot of software platforms that are out there helping connect athletes to various brands, and they can do brand deals through these software platforms. However, if you're looking for a bigger deal and a bigger fish, you've got to have a deck. And that's what we work on developing with them. And
When you say, sorry to interrupt. When you say a deck, you mean like a media deck?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a PowerPoint, if you will, that has, you know, results. It's got screenshots of what you have done for various brands. And certainly when you're getting started, you're not necessarily going to do any sort of paid partnerships necessarily, but creating content for brands that you want to attract and then showing your results. What are your analytics that come from that post, and how much engagement are you getting? That's what brands are interested in when they're investing. So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to help the athletes do to put them in the best position possible to leverage and get the best deal.
So when do you suggest people start this process? Is there a point where it's too late to start it, or are we talking like U12 or and the little ones?
The younger, the better.
Yeah.
So when you say younger, the better, like what would be a good age group to say, if you haven't started at this point, now's a good time?
My daughter is 8.
Oh.
And we have already begun.
So that's so we don't let my daughter we've talked about having social media and her involvement on there. She doesn't have her own social media, but I run an Instagram page for her. And obviously the 4 of us are the volleyball video dads. So we also do highlight and hype reel type stuff for our girls and as well as our teams. So do you have an age where maybe the parents would work with you, or would even the parents on their own would run that page, and then there's a spot where the kids transition into being more active with it?
Yeah, you know, every family has a different comfort level with what they want to do.
Absolutely.
We explain to the girls that we feel more comfortable when the parents have access to the account and are actually controlling the account, because there's a lot of questionable characters that are interested in not so nice things about these young girls. So yes. I think, you know, having involvement is really, really important, and having access so you can monitor everything. When it comes to how we work with athletes and the families, every kid is different. Yeah, some are like super into this. Like I have a couple that are really into creating content, love to be in front of the camera, you know, are all about it. And my daughter's that way. She's more of a ham. She makes TikTok videos for fun. She is just super obsessed. And so for her, it's natural for her to be in front of the camera. One of the challenges with getting started if you have a player that's on the shyer side, we talk about ways to create highlights and create content for that player that highlights them, but maybe highlights them in a more modest way, where they're doing shout outs to their teammates, to their club, to their coaches, and finding ways to incorporate them in the content without having to make them the center of attention. So everybody's different, but you can come up with a unique style based on the personality of the player that you're trying to work with.
Is there a platform that you would recommend for volleyball parents to get their kids involved in? I mean, there's a lot of them out there. I mean, would it be
Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter are the 3 most important and most powerful platforms right now for recruiting, for building a brand, all of the above. Like, those are the 3 that you should absolutely be on.
So on those 3, is there a way that you would suggest separating the type of content you put on any one of those individual platforms, or would you suggest putting the same content on across all platforms?
using the same content, the same video over 3 platforms? Is that what you're saying, Travell?
Yeah. Like, would you make like specific content for Instagram, like videos or stuff like that? And would you do something different on Twitter that you wouldn't do on Instagram? And same thing for TikTok. Would you do content differently on TikTok because of the platform compared to what you do on Twitter and Instagram?
Yes, you make content that's native to the platform. You have to put yourself in the person's shoes that's really on the content, on the platform. When we go to TikTok, we're going there to be entertained.
Mm-hmm.
And so the content that you are putting out needs to be entertaining. The things that you can do with video highlights on these platforms is different than what I would recommend that you're putting out on YouTube and sending an email to a college coach. Yeah. You're doing things that are for engagement and for interest. And so there are definitely different ways to film, and then to break down the video, and then to use you can use the same pillar of content and you can use it across different social platforms. But the absolute worst thing that you could do is create a post on TikTok and then share that same watermarked video onto Instagram Reels. Like, your account will be punished for doing that.
Yeah, those that was a great call out, because those platforms, Facebook is the same, right? They will demote or suppress, if you will, content that's linked from an external site. So, like you said, you have to do what's made that service, that platform.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say that now, because I'm finding posting a lot of short form content across, you can see the ones that you copy and drop from like TikTok or Instagram, the other ones. And I've done a lot of testing on that. You can see it over this last week, which ones are the ones that I upload straight from to the website from my phone, or from it gets more views right off the bat, versus the ones that I take off of TikTok and put onto, let's say, Instagram, or vice versa.
Yeah, I think I've experienced some of the same. So, yeah, that's a good tip for me, because I know I've done that 1 or 2 times where it doesn't quite what I'm using the original post, like for one of the platforms, either it won't upload it or it says that it's music's copyrighted or something like that. So I've done something similar to what you're saying, Dan, and but that goes to what Carrie's saying is making that content native to that platform. Yep. Which kind of could help alleviate all that, actually.
It's more work, though.
It is, but in the end, I think it's worth it. And so
that's what Kara comes in, right?
That's what I was going to say. That's what Kara's for.
Get you a Kara.
So it reminds me, I'm big into like YouTube metrics, and I follow a lot of people and like Think Media. I'm sure you probably heard of them on YouTube, right? A lot of their ranking academy. So I love learning about the algorithms and how those things track. Your team, your company sounds a lot almost like a channel manager for YouTube talent, but obviously you're probably brand management would be closer, but not describing you entirely, because you do a lot more than just brand management.
Mm-hmm. It all depends on the particular athlete and their buy-in to the process. Like I said, some are more engaged and interested than others. We figure it out really quick. And as soon as we figure out who's bought in and all in, then you're paying a lot of attention to everything that it is that they're creating and that they're doing. And we're really helping to inspire and motivate that athlete. Some athletes kind of think from the get-go that they want to do it, and then they start doing it and they start spending. I mean, this takes a lot of time. And so there has to be an interest to really do it. Our program supports whatever the athlete is looking for. If the athlete wants to go all in, awesome. We're going to go all in. If the athlete's like, look, I'm just using this to get recruited, I really don't even want to be the center of attention on here, I'm a little bit more shy, then we're creating a strategy around that, all to help them get recruited first. So the first thing you're doing is creating visibility and exposure, because the goal is hopefully to play in college. Mm-hmm. Some are wanting to use volleyball as a leg up to get into a top academic school. Some are wanting to just play at the next level, and some are wanting to play at the highest level that they can. And so we create a strategy based on their academic, athletic, social, geographic, financial goals. And we create a strategy based on what their buy-in is. And we've had 100% success rate in the last 12 and a half years I've been doing this. All of our kids have had multiple offers to play at the next level. And it's part of what makes us good is really, really trying to understand what the goals are with the family and ensuring that we're providing the necessary support to help them reach that goal. So we don't push brand building. If you're not into it, that's okay. You're not going to do it. I'm not going to convince you to do it. Like, we want you to do what you're comfortable with and create a strategy around that. We can be successful no matter what it is that your buy-in is. Some are super enthused and some are less.
Do you think it's important for them to know which direction they want to go before they get started, or do you think they just kind of jump into it and figure it out as they go?
Which are you referring to?
Like if they don't want, like if they're a shyer person, or if there's somebody that is more outspoken, is it important for them to know that before they get started on the journey? Or should they just kind of jump into it and figure it out as they go and either dial up or turn back what it is that they actually are?
I think you know from the get-go where your child's at. I think you know if you've got a ham or if you've got somebody that's like not into it. I would not suggest pushing this on anybody that doesn't want it, because if you're good at content creation, things can go viral. And I have a video that I posted last week that has 18 million, almost 19 million views on it.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, things can happen. You really want to do what your athlete is comfortable with. And so as they start, they may find, hey, I kind of like being behind the camera. I find that for some athletes, there's this fear of what people are going to think, which I tell them, if they're not paying your bills, you shouldn't care less what anybody thinks. You need to do what you are comfortable doing. And if that means you want to get out there and you want to create content and you want to find that passion and this is what you want to do, awesome, more power to you. Have empathy for the people that are trying to tear you down in your social posts, and block them and delete them and call it a day. But I have empathy for people that attack, and it's like, if you have that much time on your hands that you're going to spend time attacking, I'm sorry. I feel empathetic that that's where you're at in life.
Yeah, and I think that's, I don't know about the other guys, but that's one of the reasons I'm very cautious about the social media engagement and the activity. And I love what you said about, making sure that the players know and that it's important for the parents to have ability to access and possibly filter.
Or control.
Control, yeah.
Control it. Mm-hmm.
Do you, and this is probably another one that's dependent on the player, but do you recommend that the players keep their volleyball aspects separate from their personal activities?
Absolutely.
Good question. Good question.
Absolutely not.
Oh.
Transparency is key.
So if you're trying to build, it depends on the athlete in terms of what the goals are. If they're trying to build a brand and they're wanting to monetize on that brand, then directing all of the eyes onto one account is crucial, because brands that do business with the athlete want access to their whole fan base, not to a segmented fan base. For a lot of these athletes, their volleyball accounts are nothing compared to their personal accounts. Personal accounts are way more interesting and usually have a much stronger following. So if you're serious about wanting to monetize on a brand, then you need to be building a brand and not be segmenting your audience.
Interesting. So if you were more focused on recruiting, then maybe you would isolate your volleyball activity on social media.
You could, but coaches
maybe not.
Want to investigate you anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So at least this way, you're kind of like somebody said a second ago, you're transparent up front, so they get to see you in volleyball form, but then they also get to see who you are outside of volleyball, which is just as important
and way more interesting.
Yeah.
It gives, so when you have your content out and college coaches are able to find you and review your content, it really helps to break the ice in conversation. I recommend that athletes are looking at college coaches' Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts prior to getting on a call with them, so they can kind of get a feel for who they might be. Sometimes there's interviews on there, but you can see how they celebrate the athletes on their roster and really help to prepare before you get on a call with a college coach. Mm-hmm. And the same goes for the college coach. If they're trying to, especially if you're somebody that's a top recruit for them, if you're somebody that they're prioritizing, they want to get to know you. They want to build that relationship. They want to know who they're bringing into their program, because their culture is so important. And so by giving them insight as to who you are as a person outside of volleyball, you're also either helping your case with a certain college coach, or you may have a coach that's turned off by you. But what I can tell you is that if they're turned off by your content and you make it available, when one door closes, another one opens. Like, you don't have to worry. If you're not a fit based on your social, then you're not going to be a fit when you get there. So no matter how great the conversations are as you're going through the recruiting process, the reality is that when you get there, if they didn't like who you are on social, they probably aren't going to like who you are as a person, which means you're probably going to enter the transfer portal anyway.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so I'm really fascinated about how you utilize and leverage the social aspect of things, because again, being the video parents, we hear all the time about the type of video content you would send to a coach for recruiting. 90 seconds, 2 minutes at tops, to highlight the most important skills first, et cetera, et cetera. And so you can contrast that for us about those videos versus the social aspect of things and how they work together but work differently?
Well, the content that you're creating on social is meant for engagement. It's not necessarily highlights for recruiting. It helps with your recruiting, and those highlights can make an impact. But the reality is, when the audience is on Instagram, you're sneaking into that coach's life, whatever. So you have to think about it. What is the mindset of the coach that's on Instagram, right? And when they're on Instagram, they're on there, searching through, just like all of us, right? But our mindsets are different on each platform. So if you're going to get somebody's attention, your content that you're posting is meant for attention. There's some things that can be interesting that help you stand out. That, would you do slow motion video in your highlight reel that you're putting out on YouTube and emailing? I wouldn't recommend it. But could you do it on your social post because it is more interesting and provides something different to, the audience? The post that I got that has over 18 million views from last week is slow motion. So there are ways to create engagement and interest. And in return, that can stop a coach out of their tracks to investigate you further, figure out if they want to follow you, if they want to learn more about you. So how you set up your accounts is just as important as the content that you're putting out. Vertical video is by far the absolute most important thing in this current marketplace. The families that are getting on and they're creating highlights and they're posting it like this and they're sharing their video highlights on Instagram, and your kid looks like an ant, you're getting 19 likes and 19 views because your content's not very good. And you need to think like a content creator. And if you want to get somebody's attention, posting highlights, great. Grandma and maybe Uncle Joe can see your highlights, and maybe the 5 friends that care. But if you're trying to do this for recruiting and for visibility, then you need to educate yourself about what you're doing.
Yeah. So how much would you say quality of video content plays in as far as factors into the video? Should they look at investing in a higher quality avenue, or is using just the phone, like you said, going to be relevant enough to catch somebody's attention? Your
phone's the only thing that matters.
Ouch.
Yes.
No, it's good. It's good for it's good for them to know, though. I mean, because there's different ways to be able to kind of navigate and do this, right? You don't have to do go high end, which makes it good for people that that maybe don't have the means. But if they've got like you said, if they've got a phone, that you've got all you need to be able to create that content for that athlete. So I think it's good for people to hear that as well.
Yeah. Kara, whenever you talk about coaches, scrolling Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and something just shows up in their feed, are coaches, I guess I have a 2-part question. Are coaches searching specific hashtags where this content shows up, or are they just scrolling, as they're getting ready for bed or just lounging on the couch? Or are they just scrolling and all of a sudden the content pops up? What are coaches looking for when this stuff shows up for them?
So on Instagram, for example, you no longer have to use hashtags for your content to be searchable. That update was put into effect in August. And so now any content that's posted where you have any sort of long form, like what you detail out in the post, is actually really important to making your content discoverable. So hashtags are actually less important when it comes to Instagram in particular. When coaches go on Instagram, are they searching for athletes? They could be, but they could just be getting on to get their updates and then stumble on them. Every coach is different. Some coaches love social media. Some coaches hate social media. Some go on and voyeur and they don't have any posts and they don't have any sort of engagement, but they'll go on and they will search, especially for athletes that they're recruiting. They'll go on and just see what they can find. That's especially important as they're getting close to making a decision on whether or not they want you for their program. So they could be going on to search. I don't really look at it that way. I want to have an athlete or my own content sneak into I want everybody to see my content. I want everyone to see my players' content. So you make content that's good enough, that ends up being shared, that ends up being interesting enough that they can't avoid not seeing it. There's even ways to run advertising to specific college coaches that you want to run ads against to make sure that they see your content.
Nice.
How many clients, how many athletes do you generally work with year over year?
About 200.
That's
We're
quite a bit.
We're not like an NCSA is into the thousands. We don't do that. We're more of a boutique. We don't take everybody on either. So we do a lot of consults. I'm really passionate about educating families and sharing, tips and insight on how to navigate the process on your own. I'm not really big in sales. It's not really been my thing. I'm really passionate about educating. And when families get on, if it's a good fit, if I feel like they're a good fit for our program and, they're a good fit for us, we're a good fit for them, then I'll present the services and I'll send the financial agreement. But I would say out of the meetings that I do in a week, there aren't that many that we present our services to.
Interesting.
What are your age ranges for the players that you currently have out of the 200?
8th grade to college transfers.
Okay, so that big wide array.
The 8th graders are the legit top, like the only kids that we're interested in taking on at that age are seriously talented, playing in open division, hitting enough events that it makes sense for the investment and that it makes sense for them to get started. So it's not for every, like we don't take every 8th grader on. A lot of times I'll get on and I'll do like an early call with somebody and then say like, hey, we'll check in with you in a year from now. And if I see you at a tournament, awesome. But we'll check in and just kind of see how you've developed over the course of the year and then get you started. We like starting freshman year just because there's only so much time, and that's the biggest thing. So even if somebody has all the money in the world, right, there's still a time constraint where, some of you are in Texas. Holy cow, like you guys play every day of the year. Like there is no off time at this point. In some parts of the year, you're playing high school and club at the same time. It's like crazy town. So when you start thinking about those, those weekends that you have potentially available or the vacation time off, you want to take advantage of whatever time you have to be able to get on college campuses and see what your kid likes. Do they want a big school? Do they want a small school? Is it realistic? Can they actually play in a big school? Or should they be looking at club volleyball in a big school? Those are all the things that we start to, talk about as they go through the process.
So we're obviously the volleyball dads, so we try to take a parent's perspective on a lot of our discussions that we have. Can you give maybe a couple of things that, parents do well that help their kids through this branding and recruiting process, and maybe even a couple of things where parents really get in the way and maybe mess it up for them? Do you have any examples you could share?
When it comes to filming and branding, recruiting, there are lots of ways that parents screw up. So be specific.
I don't know.
Let's start with the branding.
Yeah, start with branding.
It's around that.
Yeah.
branding, it could be how you are filming. You could be putting out highlights that don't truly highlight your kid, where you think that this great dive that they have where they get this ball up is fantastic. And any college coach is looking at the video like, you could have taken 2 extra steps and gotten to that ball, and that play really sucks. And you're So from a video perspective, there's things that are not technically sound that aren't necessarily in their best interest to be putting out as highlights. That's one aspect.
So I have a question before you move forward. In a situation like that, where you as a parent think that this is the best play ever, this is going to get all the coaches' eyeballs. If we went through V-Ball Recruiter, do the videos go past you guys, or you're just educating us on that's not a good play? Or how does your service help that situation?
We manage all your video editing.
So you choose what gets posted and what doesn't.
We have college coaches that are all behind the scenes, like former college coaches, former college players, club coaches that are all behind the scenes that help to manage your video editing. You're not doing that on your own. You're filming and you're uploading to our Dropbox. We have multiple Dropboxes depending on the type of content, but you're filming and you're uploading the video, and our team is creating the content and then sending you captions and song suggestions and things of that nature to actually tune it to when you actually go to post.
Got it.
So that's one aspect that families can, make some mistakes when they're, creating their own content. Another screaming in the camera and not necessarily editing that part out is another way. Body language at a tournament is another way to get your kid eliminated off somebody's list, depending on how you interact with your athlete at a tournament and whether you're making the coach feel uncomfortable with how you're communicating to them or to the coach. If they see you getting engaged with the coach and interacting in a hostile fashion, they will cross you off the list. And I promise you, they will tell everybody and their mother at the bar that night what the engagement and the interaction was when they saw you. Yelling at the refs. Like, there are certain things that college coaches are really attuned to that are like, like we're not tolerating it. Because if you behave that way at an event, they are concerned that you could behave like that in a college match and it could impact the team or the program. And the other thing is, what are you doing behind the scenes? Are you the parent that's going to email the athletic director and try and get me fired?
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, I have definitely seen excellent athletes kicked off of teams because of parent behavior. Not anything that the kid did, but just how that parent behaved.
Is that a thing, Kara? Do college coaches and recruiters look at the parents' actions as well?
100%, especially this day and age. There are college coaches that lose their jobs all of the time because coaches or parents get involved and they reach out to the athletic director and they are relentless about getting the coach fired, and they'll create a lot of drama within the team with other parents. They'll get other people fired up and they'll do everything they can to take that person down.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of time. I don't know about the rest of
that seems very tiring, man. It really does.
Yeah, no kidding. I actually saw a interview a couple weeks ago. I'm from Arkansas, so I follow the Razorbacks, and obviously it's football season right now. But Sam Pittman, the head coach, was giving an post-game interview, and one of the journalists asked a question: "Hey, why did you recruit this one player?" His response was his parents. I recruited him because of his parents. He didn't talk about his skill. Didn't talk about his academics, didn't talk about anything else. He said, I liked his parents. I really liked his parents. I thought that was amazing to hear a coach post-game interview talk about, I recruited the guy because of his parents. I think it speaks to everything that you're saying, Kara, about parents play a huge piece of that. The whole behavior piece at tournaments and things. We've all seen crazy stuff, happen at tournaments. People get in fights because, people won't get out of their chair or whatnot. And I think it's huge. And I really appreciate you saying that parent behavior really impacts a kid's ability to get recruited.
Yeah.
Well, I'll only add one thing to that. And that is, you never know who's watching. There are college coaches that have young children that are playing. So even fourth graders, fifth graders, sixth graders, you could be in the gym and you've got a college coach that's in there that has an athlete that's playing. And usually they try and keep to themselves. I know some college coaches don't, they tend to distance themselves a bit from the families and don't necessarily want to, build those connections. But then there's other athletes that, other parents who may have played in college that are super close friends with college coaches. Our volleyball community, volleyball is a lifestyle sport. And so the diehards that are coaching, tend to stay in close contact with former teammates. And, it's even though it's a really big community, it's also a really small community. And so I can't tell you how many times I've, talked to families that are friends with certain college coaches, and they will ask those parents questions about certain players in the gym, especially during the quiet period or the dead period when they're not able to get in the gym and do any recruiting. That doesn't mean that they don't have somebody else that's like, oh, hey, by the way, I caught so-and-so and holy, that parent is insane. Like that kind of stuff happens all the time. You just never know who's watching. You're always on a stage.
Keep that in mind, boys.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm always
for everybody, because, and so like, what would be your biggest tip on avoiding issues like that for parents who are, let's say they decide to make this jump into the whole athlete branding deal with their kid or their athlete? What would be your number one advice to keep any of the negative things that might come from parent behavior?
Well, I think first, figuring out if your kid's really all about this and they really want to either be recruited or build a brand, making sure that it's being led by them, that they actually want this, that you're not doing it for them, that they actually are bought in and want to, go through this journey and this process. Because you won't be able to convince them. They'll have to make that decision themselves. So I think the biggest thing is just making sure, like, are they enjoying the game? Are they really wanting this? And not to say that, when they have a bad day or they have a bad practice and they get in the gym and they're like, gosh, I suck. I'm not playing very well, or I can't do this. That doesn't mean, just say, well, let's give up and let's go do something else. I think there's certain, ways that you can be very encouraging and, allow them to vent. But as you're allowing them to vent, I would say listening and really listening to them, not necessarily offering solutions right away, just allowing them to talk, and then being very careful with your words. Because a lot of times when it's our kids, there's times that we react emotionally, but just understanding there's always two sides to every story. There's perspective that, is certainly needed when kids are frustrated and getting in the car on the ride home from tournaments and things of that nature. So I think just, being a good listener and allowing them to vent and being really encouraging, like, hey, it's a bad day, but guess what? Tomorrow's, you're going to wake up tomorrow and we got a whole new day and we're going to put one foot in front of the other. I think those are the ways that you can, avoid running into major issues, is doing it for the right reasons, maybe.
Yeah. And Kara, out of curiosity, So two questions. One was you've mentioned athletes, so you haven't been specific with boys or girls. What percentage do you have split between the two?
Oh no, I only work with girls.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. I was looking at your website.
Oh, because there's a guy, Kevin Pratt, who is a writer on the boys side, and he is a writer and a college recruiting coordinator, and he is starting his own business. And so I'm been mentoring Kevin and been doing everything I can to support him and his efforts and do what I can. I love volleyball. I love our community. So any way that we can grow the game and grow the effort is awesome. So it was a cool way for him to kind of dip his toes into starting his own recruiting business. And I'm like, hey, more power to you. I'm happy to help you out. So
yeah, that's great. Boys volleyball is a whole different sport. Dan got to watch some at State in Wisconsin this past week.
Yeah, they're totally
it's fun.
Which is insane.
There's so much. There's so many more levels of that you can do with the boys than the girls.
Yeah.
And Kara, the other question I had along those lines, or along your services, have you seen girls come out of your service and kind of lean into content creation? Like I said, they have to be interested and engaged in it.
It's too new. It's too new for me to tell you at this point. I only started really pushing branding, I would say, in the last couple of months. And I'll explain. Several years ago, I've always kind of been ahead. I was building websites for clients several years ago, and I was working with a graphic designer who was creating custom logos, and we were doing all this work. And the girls were just not all about it. I was just way too ahead of the times. And so I kind of pulled back. And this time when the legislation passed for NIL, I kind of sat and waited. And I thought, let me just wait and see the articles start to come out and, see what happens. And now I got to tell you, over the last few months that we've been doing it, we only have a few that are pretty serious. And it really has led me to wanting to empower and educate these young women. But at this stage of the game, I'm doubling down on my own brand and starting to expand on my own brand rather than trying to convince an athlete that this is what they should do. You have to really want it. It takes a lot of time.
The word you used earlier was the word you used earlier was intentional. Right? This stuff does not happen by accident. It is intentional, and like you said, it is a lot of work, which is why you exist, right? That's because if it was easy, everybody would do it. And
absolutely, everybody would wear the red hat.
Yeah, I'm relentless, and I have a drive that most people don't quite understand. That's just
you have to in social, and it's ever changing. Just like you mentioned with the Instagram, the hashtags changing, the algorithms are always changed. It's always evolving. So it's amazing to have somebody like you to shepherd athletes through that and through that environment, those different platforms.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, I have a different kind of question, if I may. You said that you're relentless, so I can imagine, you're at these tournaments, and there I go, talking with my hands again. Sorry, I got to put those down; they start disappearing. But you go to these tournaments, you're around all these people, you're in these different environments. So I read on your website that you're introverted. I'm also introverted, and for me, I'll tell you about mine later. But I'm curious about for you, when you're relentless like this, you're at these tournaments, you're meeting all these people, all these face-to-face engagements. How do you recover?
So it takes a lot out of me. First off, I'm kind of a weird introvert, extrovert. I have extroverted qualities, but I have a lot of introverted qualities too. I have bad social anxiety, believe it or not. So when I go to the tournaments, people sometimes approach, and I don't always look approachable. I try really hard to look approachable because it's not my intention, but sometimes I look like stern or like not approachable, and it's not my intent at all. Sometimes I'm like super sweaty and like really nervous, and it's what happened after COVID. It's starting to lessen. I felt like it started to get a bit better this past season, maybe by March or April. At the beginning of the season, I was having a really difficult time. My brand grew tremendously on TikTok. And so there were so many young girls that were coming up that were wanting to take pictures. And I was so flattered and beyond humble, beyond grateful. I mean, to get to this place where people are super excited to see you is just like, I can't even tell you how cool that is and how grateful I am. But when they're coming up to approach you, like it can be a little, it takes you back a little bit. And then kind of walking by and hearing like chatter, if you will. So it started to really freak me out. And then I would say like March or April last year, I started to really just kind of chill and relax. But by the end of the day, I am toast. Like it's exhausting. And when I come home from a tournament weekend, I usually can't take calls that next day. It takes a lot out of me. I'm still working, but I won't necessarily get on the phone and take client calls and deal with that kind of stuff. I usually have to work on other things just to kind of cover a bit.
So Carrie, you and I could hang out. There's a reason I'm the video dad, is so I can hide behind the camera. You sound, when you were describing yourself, I was like,
that's exactly what Jim told us like a year and a half ago. This is exactly how it is. It's funny.
It's I work in sales, and when I first went into a sales role, I remember being at a huge convention. There's probably like 2,500 to 3,000 people, and the first night is like a social gathering, and I'm sitting around with my coworkers who are also working sales, and we were having dinner, and then the social event was going to start. And I remember I was sweating, not profusely, just sweating, thinking in about half an hour, these guys are going to get up and walk out into that crowd and just start randomly talking to people. And I'm going to be sitting over here like, what am I supposed to do? I don't understand this. And it got me. And but, like you grew into it over time. If you were to listen to the stories these guys share, they talk about, the growth that I had, the way I started to accept it and grow into it. Still introverted. If I travel and I'm gone for 3 or 4 days and have multiple calls throughout the day, by the time I get home, I set my schedule up so that I'm in the gym by myself, 1.5 hours to 2 hours for the next 1 to 2 days, just because I don't want to be around people. I need to work this energy off. Even though I'm drained, I'm trying to work it off so that I can get back to being on the phone, scheduling those next face-to-faces, getting on the next Zoom call or Teams call or whatever. It's crazy to do that. But I just want to get your perspective on it because I read that on your website and appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah. Alcohol is very helpful.
That's awesome. Kara, I had one other question in regards to like the tournaments themselves, the convention centers and the tournaments. Do they welcome you in with arms? Have you ever had any issues with them not wanting you there, or having any issues with causing like confusion or anything like that with your fame?
I haven't had any issues about anybody not. Well, I mean, look, there's plenty of people that don't like me or don't like what I do.
What? That doesn't make any sense.
That line out the door. But when it comes to the tournaments themselves, I haven't had any issues about not being able to be like in there, or we haven't had any issues.
That's good.
there's a we always pay for our entrance. There's some tournaments now that we have a media site. We launched the media site in April, which is new. So having the media site has been.
What is the media site? For those that
it's vballrecruiter.com.
Oh, I see what you're saying. The website.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
that website, the V-Ball Recruiter website, is actually like our news site. My college recruiting site is myrecruitingsolutions.com. My media site is vballrecruiter.com. So on V-Ball Recruiter, we post stories and cover all the various events that are going on around the country. We do national player rankings. We do player watch lists. We do all kinds of stuff on there. So that site is a news site. And because we're content creators and we're going in and we're writing articles and we're doing video content, for the most part, the tournament organizers are stoked that we're there because I have such a strong following that it helps them. So I haven't had any issues when it comes to them. The girls get really excited when we create content and we're sharing content across our social channels too. So they're usually super excited to, have us like out there and creating all kinds of fun stuff.
So you mentioned that there were some people who weren't necessarily happy with you. And you don't have to give any specifics, but have you had encounters at tournaments where people weren't happy that their kid wasn't on a list or something along those lines?
Oh, I'm sure that's happened. There's people that, there's different schools of thought on recruiting and recruiting services as a whole. So there are certainly, individuals that have a serious problem that I run a recruiting service or that I own it. I don't run it at this point, but I own it. And so there's a lot of people that, don't necessarily love that aspect. And so I think that's where the biggest controversy comes from, at least in my world.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Maybe a rivalry if somebody has a competing business model, but there's
business is at the end of the day, business is business, and at the end of the day, McDonald's and Wendy's ain't throwing hands, So
I don't know. They have on Twitter. There's been some beef.
I see what you did there.
That's all for marketing and branding. I'm sure.
Dad joke. All right, I got a dad joke in. So, Kara, is it all right if we come up and say hi to you at a tournament?
Yes, and don't wear your red hat. Don't.
You sure?
Yeah.
I cannot pull off the hat like you can, so I'm good.
No. I feel like a monkey.
There's a grandfather that goes to tournaments. He's actually a Santa, and he wears a red hat at tournaments, and we selfied at an event, and I'm like, this is the imposter. This
awesome.
old grandpa.
You should make a video where you put the what is that game that the kids all play that you talked about, the imposter? Come on, one of y'all know. Help me out. Among Us. You've heard that?
Man.
Yeah. You make a video with that music in there about him being the imposter.
This Kara, this has been fantastic. We're right around time. I'm kind of blown away by how much I've learned in the last 45, 50 minutes. It's really appreciate you joining us and sharing what you do and what your team does with athletes. It has been a lot to learn, a lot to process, and I do hope people reach out to you for more information and education.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of opportunity here.
And then just a quick promo if you want to punch in any social sites that you want to promote real quick.
V-Ball Recruiter and pretty much V-Ball Recruiter everywhere. TikTok, V-Ball Recruiter 09, because somebody had taken the name when I decided.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Well, and you have a podcast now too, right?
I have one under the hat, and then I have another one that's actually launching soon, which will be Lady in the Red Hat. And that is going to be on women empowerment. I'm actually going to be interviewing moms that are working moms that have athletes that may have been athletes, but also are juggling it all and like trying to find different life hacks. I've got 3 kids and I travel a lot. So I'm just going to go down a different path here and expand. And yeah, I'm excited about it.
What was that new one that's going to launch called?
It's called Lady in the Red Hat.
Ah.
So,
And don't forget your girl dads if you need a little girl dad support for empowerment, because I am all about my 2 babies. They are amazing.
I am as well.
yeah.
So,
Yes.
Our goal is to interview people that have had athletes on the other side, you know, after they've actually gone through college and now they're out in the real world. And what did you learn? Like, when you look back now, like, what do you think? And what did you learn? And
that's going to be cool.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear. Yeah, I'm looking
that's
forward
going to
to
be
that.
interesting.
Same.
Yeah, that'll be fun. So, well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
It's
Yeah,
been awesome.
Thank you so much.
And then for everybody else that's watching, make sure you go over to the video, or not the video, Volleyball Dads Facebook group. That's over there. And then if you guys are still watching, please like, comment, and subscribe. And it's been a ride.
Our Spotify and Apple
and
Podcast.
Get all your podcasts in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Amazing show.
All right.
See you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.